Welcome to the Strategic Marketer Podcast, where we talk about strategies, tactics, and practical steps to help you become a more strategic marketer. I'm your host, Joseph Lewin, and today's conversation is with Debo. Debo is host of Young Married Christian Podcast and head of communities and marketing squads at Sweetfish Media. Today's conversation, we're talking all about how to build communities and specifically how Sweetfish creates brand loyalty and awareness using communities. Now, before we dive into the conversation, if you listen to this podcast, I would love your feedback. Reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear what you think of the show, what you like, what I could do better, and areas that you would like to hear more about from other B2B marketers. Without further ado, let's dive into the conversation with Debo. Should companies consider their company's audience, a community?
What a great question. And I feel like, honestly, one of the biggest misconceptions that companies can have is believing that just because they have a huge audience that they're doing community, right? I think that in the B2B space, we see a lot of people saying that community can just be used interchangeably with audience. That it's the same thing. And essentially, if you think about, outside of work, your friends, say you go to a concert with your closest friends, and even if it's like a group of your friends, maybe from your fantasy football league or whatever, and you're there together and you have the whole row. Well, the row, that's your community. That's your friends. But everybody else in that stadium, you don't know those people. They're just the audience. And so I think that a lot of times companies kind of short themselves by not growing those intentional and intimate relationships with individuals in more intimate groups. So for us at Sweetfish, we have taken the opposite approach. And instead of considering a giant, large audience to be our community, we've tried to build small, more intimate communities of about 5 to 8 people each. Hopefully that answers your question. That's a long way to say no.
No, that's perfect. So in the B2B world especially, I feel like the word community, I'm just putting on my hat if I wasn't already familiar with you guys and what you do. You hear the word community and it could feel like, man, are we just going to sit around in a circle and sing songs? Like, how does that help me meet quota or meet my business goals, or some of these things that people are held accountable to in the business world. And so I love what you guys are doing and kind of redefining how you can have relationships in the business to business space, and it really does end up driving goals and revenue in the long run. But it's not necessarily something that is going to help you meet quota tomorrow. But help us redefine what community could look like in a business context, and what a vibrant community, what that could look like.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on a couple of different things there. Number one, saying that a lot of marketers, they want to be able to connect the dots from what I'm doing to what is that generating, what is going to be my return on my investment with whatever I do as a marketer, and I'm sure that managers are going to want to see that. And with communities, it's sometimes hard to see. It's sometimes, difficult to see that by jumping in to a community yourself as a marketer and being able to actually tell your boss, or, if your boss even needs your approval or whatever, to say yeah, it's okay for you to spend 1 hour a month to be able to, dive into this, community of B2B marketers. But if they do, and they take that, I don't know if you call it a risk, or if you, just put their time into it, I think that you can see, or I've at least seen these marketers be able to get a return. And also, it's you can do the minimal. You can jump into a community with an hour a month, which is all we require. And I've also seen people do the opposite, and they go full in and they're talking to the people in their marketing squad for, hours a week and connecting with them on LinkedIn and, showing up in their comments. And I think that builds true community and true friendship. And it almost builds a team of cheerleaders around yourself and your posts when you're wanting to get, whatever message you need to get out on LinkedIn. And then, if you ever need to switch jobs, or if you need help with the job that you're currently working on, you have those people to go to. Now, on the other side of that, the second part of your statement was about companies. Like, why would companies do something like this? Or is it a smart thing for companies to have community? And I think that with Sweetfish, we've already seen, and I mean, we went in having no idea what this thing was going to do. Is it going to flop? Is anybody going to even show up to these groups? What's going to be the future of this? And you don't know until you experiment with it. But I mean, so far we have seen people that have been in marketing squads. You're proof of it right here, Joseph, having a podcast. You come into a community, you start hearing all these people talking about podcasting, and you're like, man, maybe I want to check that thing out. And I think that if, those companies, and that's not necessarily the goal. It's not just like, oh, we need to get these people into our community so that we can convert them into customers. But I mean, that's like a secondary benefit, is like you get people in these groups talking about whatever your company does. And then sometimes they say, well, hey, maybe, you piqued my interest. Maybe I should try that out. But then the main goal and the main purpose is just to make your company's, brand and image look, you want to build like almost like a fan base, or like people that are like, they're gonna fall in love, not just with what you're putting out on LinkedIn or your product that you provide, but just knowing that, like, hey, there's a person behind the screen, or a person behind the profile that is real, and we can interact with them. And, hopefully I have made Sweetfish look all right. Hopefully I've been a good image of that. But, it brings people together, and they say, man, I love this community that is being provided by this company. And then because you love the community, that in turn, causes them to, I guess, attribute that to the company.
Yeah, no, you're hitting on something that is really important, and that's hard to quantify, because we've been moving, especially in the B2B space, towards more data-driven marketing and trying to find numbers to back up everything that's done. And, I think business in general has moved more in that direction. Like, how can we quantify this? How can we set our pipeline goals and make sure that everything we're doing is moving us towards that? And there's absolutely value to that. And I'm not totally hating on data and data-driven marketing, but at the same time, there's things that the greatest companies have done that can't be backed up by data in the short term, but they're backed up by customers that rave about you. And you don't build a brand with customers that rave about you because you've optimized the conversion on your landing page to convert at a higher percentage. Like, that doesn't win you brand champions. And something that the communities have done with me, and that I'm seeing happen already for you guys, is it's creating champions out of people and raving fans of people who haven't actually been a customer of yours, and maybe won't ever be a customer of yours, but they're a raving fan, and they are going to recommend other people that they know who need that. And so for the company that I work at, we're a little bit small and a little probably too scrappy to be a fit for what you guys are doing right now. But if as I interact with marketers all the time, and I have marketers on my podcast all the time, and if there's somebody that's in that zone and they're saying, hey man, I'm looking to start a podcast myself for our company, we're thinking about doing that, do you have any recommendations? I'd be like, man, you got to talk to the guys at Sweetfish. You got to head over there. And you're not going to win that by, just having even a good blog post or all these other marketing activities that we do. You do that by really changing something in people's lives, making a difference in their life, adding value to them. I know that phrase gets used all the time, but this is a way that you're actually truly adding value to people, making their life better, helping them in their career without looking for anything in particular in return from every single person that comes through. But then on the flip side, that builds that trust. It builds true brand affinity, brand loyalty. And you could how much ad spend would you have to do to get as many touch points with these people as you get by having them in your marketing squads? So,
right. Yeah. And I'll just say this. Not only do I want to point out the fact that my hair is looking like Jimmy Neutron right now, but I'll also say that marketers so often wake up, like between them waking up and starting their day to ending their work day, it is a nonstop, just like go after the task, what's the next task? And it's just constantly in this remote like lifestyle that we live in. A lot of us not really going into offices and just doing work from home. I feel like that we're losing the human side of things, and we're losing that personal touch. And so I feel like that so many times marketers, we almost feel like robots, because it's just all about, creating the most efficient, way of crunching this number down and getting this result that we want. And so I think that it's very important for marketers to be a part of some kind of community. I mean, Sweetfish offers marketing squads, but other companies out there have amazing communities as well. And being a part of just a group of people to bounce ideas off of, to be able to say like, hey, we've been trying this thing for months and we just keep going in circles, and to have some fresh ideas out there, it takes an hour out of your month to be able to like actually just sit there and, maybe figure out some ideas, or say like, hey, this thing that I'm struggling with, you're an expert at, and this thing that you're struggling with, I'm an expert at. And, after this, call, we should hop on a separate call and be able to, help each other out, work through that. And I think that that's something, because every company, your marketing team is only as strong as the people in it. So unless you branch out, and that's why, we try to create these squads, these marketing squads, to where people are of the same level, because typically if you're with a company, you're not going to have people doing the exact same thing as you.
Right.
Like, because why would you have two Joseph Lewins when you could just have one, right? It's
one is already too much to handle. He definitely don't want to.
Yeah,
I don't know what I'd do with another one of me. I would drive myself insane.
so right. And so we try to, put you in a squad of other marketers that are other Joseph Lewins, to where you can bounce those ideas back and forth and say, hey, I'm struggling with this. I don't have anyone else to go to on my team that can help me with it. And just be able to jam on those ideas.
This week's episode of The Strategic Marketer is brought to you by the Brand Compass course. If you're looking to take your marketing services side hustle to the next level, the Brand Compass course is for you. In the course, you're going to learn how to identify your ideal customers and narrow down to serve a niche market. Then you're going to learn how to productize your offering so that it's easier for customers to understand exactly what you do for them. And then you're going to put all of this information into a one-page messaging guide. That way you can use your customer's language to speak exactly to their pain points and problems every single time. Check out the show notes for a link to the course. Yeah, so let's dive a little bit deeper into what you guys specifically are doing, because we've kind of been talking around it. But Tell me a little bit more about what you're doing with community at Sweetfish and the marketing squads. What does that look like?
Yeah, for sure. So we essentially are going out and we're trying to be strategic about, like I said, getting people that are in the same realm of job title and bringing them in We try to get at least, director and above level. We're aiming for companies that have 50 or more employees, and we're wanting them to be based out of the United States or Canada, which those three criteria would be Sweetfish's, ICP, which is not accidental. So we do want people in squads that could potentially become customers of ours. We're not just going out and getting marketers from, B2C companies in Asia that,
right,
are a team of two. Like that doesn't really benefit us. And it, most of the time is not going to benefit the people that they're in the squad with. So whenever we find those people, we try to do a mix of our current customers with non-customers, because we do want to have, our customers gaining knowledge from people outside. And then we want people from the outside hearing how awesome Sweetfish is as well. But we don't push that in the community. Like if that conversation comes up naturally, awesome. But if not, that's not our main goal. But we essentially set up these groups with 5 to 8 people. We meet once a month for an hour. And these Zoom calls will have somebody present a lesson learned, something that they've learned from the beginning of the career or until now, anywhere in between, something that they just think is going to stir up conversation and create a good discussion. And then we have somebody present an experiment where it's something that they've tried that failed, maybe something they tried that was successful, or maybe something that they're still trying that hasn't been able to deliver any data yet. And so just those 2 topics and going through those, it allows us to, one of our 3 pillars that we talk about with marketing squads is brain juice. And that's kind of our brain juice part of the squads. It's just kind of 2 people delivering knowledge. And a lot of times the presentations are phenomenal, and it's something that, people are gaining from. But then on top of that, throughout the month, there's conversation going on Slack, conversation on LinkedIn, to where one of our other pillars, which is Squad Up, is what we call it, Squad Up, which is essentially just that community aspect of it and just squad members interacting with each other. And other than that, we'll do some random, what we call our 3rd pillar, heart hugs, where I just kind of do spontaneous acts of kindness. I might send something to their mailbox, like a handwritten note or a little gift, or I might pop on and do like a one-on-one call with them and just kind of like wish them a good day. So we try to encompass a large range of getting a lot of good content for, our development mentally, but then also pouring in to that community aspect and
I love it, man.
Building friendships.
Yeah, you're doing a lot of different things there at the same time that continue to build that brand loyalty like we're talking about. And it's not, like you're saying, to tie it back into, well, what's the business value of it? Well, you're getting people who are your ideal customers, or potentially ideal customers, or at least interfacing with people who are your ideal customers on a regular basis. So whatever way it is, you're interfacing with people who are going to be able to get the name of Sweetfish out to the world. It's like you said, it's not B2C marketers that are running e-commerce stores. It's people who are B2B marketers, and that's who you guys serve and who you help. And you're building affinity with them. You're also helping them connect with each other, but you've facilitated that. So then they're going to think back to all the relationships that they built with other people. And when they think of those relationships, they're going to be thinking about marketing squads and Sweetfish at the same time as they're thinking about the benefit and value of that new relationship that they have with people. And then the other piece of that is sometimes it's really hard to do market research, because how do you get in front of your ideal customer and ask them the hard questions that, you really need to know and understand? And I know that the Sweetfish model of doing podcasts already helps you do that, because you're getting people who are your ideal customers on your podcasts and you're able to ask them some of those questions. So that's already brilliant. But now you take that a step further. And you get to sit in and do a bunch of market research with people who are your ideal customers. You get to identify what are the biggest challenges they're facing, and you hear them talking about it on all the calls. Here's the biggest frustrations that we're having. So it's like you're literally getting people to come do focus groups for free, but it's not selfish. You're not doing it to try to get something or to coerce people. It's really just give first and give again and give again and give again, and then it's going to return. It makes me think of the Bible verse that says, cast your bread upon the water and it shall return. It's kind of like that. You're casting out all of this bread. You're feeding people. You're adding value to them. You're filling their marketing bellies with yummy marketing goods, and helping them gain value, gain knowledge with each other. But then you get out of that loyalty and customer research firsthand like that. So
I just want to
absolutely killer.
I want to be clear that Joseph Lewin is saying that we are the manna of B2B marketers is I think what you're saying there. Yeah, I mean, we offer the squads completely for free. We place them into these squads for 6 months. And then after the 6 months, we try to then get them into another squad. We mix them up. So our goal is essentially that we'll just take you as an example, Joseph. If you were to be a part of our squads for a year, that by the end of that year, you would have met essentially 8 to maybe 12 new marketing friends by the end of the year. So we're not trying to grow your community like in a crazy way. We're not trying to have you, and I mean, you can connect with the other marketing squads, but what we really want to do is have you build like true, genuine relationships with very small groups of people, because I feel like so many times in this business world, it's all about quantity, and not necessarily about the quality.
Yeah. So I want to take a couple minutes here. We're going to talk about some practical steps in a minute so that people out there can really start thinking about how they could implement something like what you guys are doing. But the first thing I want to emphasize is the interactions I've had with you guys. It's clear, in having met your CEO, James, and understanding a little bit about his mentality. It's absolutely a give first mentality. And then there is going to be benefit from giving first. But it's not this thing where it's like, how can we trick people to coming into our thing and then extract as much money as we can from them? And if you have that mentality, then don't do community. For one, it's wrong to do that. And if your only goal for having people on is how can I just get this trick this person into getting into our thing so we can make tons of money off of them. I don't really love that idea. So stay away from it for that reason. But for two, it's just, you're not going to actually build community if you do that. People can see if there's genuine effort being put in or not. And James is invested in hiring you to build communities out and to add value to people, because he saw it as something that both has business value, but also is doing something that really brings value to the people that are coming in. And when you marry those two things together, then you have a successful business that builds a brand and builds community. So start with the fact that you need to be giving first. But before we go down there, I want to share just for a second about my experience so far working with you guys, because I have you on the podcast because of the marketing squads. And in fact, I have a podcast because of the marketing squads. So I want to share about my experience interacting with Sweetfish and the value that I've gotten. First of all, I'm glad that I snuck in, because I am neither marketing director level and I don't, or work at a company that has over 50 people. So I somehow snuck in under the radar, and I'm happy for it.
Well, now that we know,
I'm grateful. You're out. But basically what happened was I interfaced with somebody who is a customer of yours on LinkedIn, and he must have commented on something of your CEO, James's profile. And so I saw James come up in my feed, and then he posted about how, hey, we're starting these marketing squads for B2B marketers to help them grow. And I'm like, dang, that's something I know I already want to be doing, is building that community. This is great. So I reached out to James. He got me in. And then I met you on the marketing squads and got rolling in the squad. And then from that, basically I think it was the second month, I messaged James and I was like, hey man, I'm going to have to miss this marketing squad because I'm going to Disney with my family and I'm going to have to miss this one. And then he messaged me back and he's like, dude, you're coming to Orlando? I live in Orlando. We've got to get breakfast and this is going to be awesome. And so sure enough, I go to Orlando. James picks me up for breakfast and then I meet you in person as well. And had a great connection there and got to know him a little bit, got to know you a little bit better. And then, that led into doing the marketing squad, going through that first one. And I met Todd, I don't know how to say his last name.
Klauser.
Todd Klauser, the YouTube guy. Mm-hmm. And I actually am interviewing him for the podcast as well. And we've connected and had some great relationship that's coming out of the podcast as well. But then I reached out to James about something else. And he recommended that I talk to Dan Sanchez, who's your director of audience growth at Sweetfish. And so we connected through, this whole series of events, and he encouraged me to start a podcast. And he's like, man, you got to do it. You're wanting to network, you're wanting to grow in this area. So you should definitely start a podcast. And so I did. So this podcast exists because of the marketing squads. And then I interviewed Dan for the podcast. His is already released about thought leadership. And then interviewed Emily DeBrito. She'll be Emily Brady by the time this comes out. And that episode will have already been released by the time this one comes out. So, there's already been a lot of value both for me and for you guys, getting the word out there about what you guys are doing, through the marketing squads. So, huge shout out. It's definitely working. And I'm seeing you guys in my feed pretty much every day on LinkedIn. And and then I'm commenting and engaging with your stuff on LinkedIn. So then my audience is seeing your stuff come up, between all of you guys at Sweetfish, all of your evangelists on LinkedIn. I'm commenting on stuff and it's spreading the word and spreading the message about Sweetfish and what you guys are doing. So it works, and it does drive actual dark social conversations that you can't really necessarily track, but that build real relationship. So I'm a fan.
Wow, man. I feel like I should be paying you under the table right now, but because this is remote, the money would just fall in my room.
Wait, I thought that's why I was having you on. This is a paid podcast, right? No, I'm just kidding. Absolutely not. This is not a paid advertisement. You guys have just seriously knocked my socks off by adding value. So.
And I mean, that goes back to just kind of what we were talking about of why do community, because I don't think anything else like creates that kind of relationship. But yeah, a few things that I had to say when you're talking through all of that was when you were saying about how you should never go into community for the return. 100%. I mean, we went into this knowing that an average community doesn't get any kind of like financial return until 18 months in. 18 months. So try to convince your boss to hire somebody that is going to just be taking money out of the piggy bank for 18 months with no return. It's tough. So first of all, you got to have somebody like James, who's a visionary and that just wants to be generous with how he manages his company, which is amazing. And number two, I mean, I am the proof in the pudding, I guess you could say, that he knew that he didn't want any kind of talk about pushing Sweetfish or pushing any kind of agenda onto these groups. He hired a guy that was working for Disney World that, what wasn't even close to being in the B2B marketing space, because he knew that I would care about the people over anything else. And so I think that just needs to be in the ear of anybody that's hearing this and thinking, oh, maybe our company should go down that route of community. You want to make sure that your person cares about people more over anything. Now, obviously, they can have a little more B2B marketing chops than I did. I mean,
but you don't need B2B marketing chops to facilitate a community.
No.
Just like I think that this podcast is a little better because I know enough about marketing to ask better questions. But still, you could have a podcast about a subject that you don't have expertise in because the other people do. So, I mean, you're there to facilitate, not to be an expert marketer. which is what's awesome about having people on a podcast or facilitating a group, is you don't have to be the expert. You get to just extract expertise from somebody and then be able to help them clarify what they're saying and get the word out there in a podcast format. And same with the communities. You're just facilitating people, sharing knowledge and getting their ideas out there to the world. Strategic Marketer is brought to you in part by Thrive Themes. Thrive Themes is a killer visual WordPress editor. They've also recently launched editable themes so that you can edit every element of your WordPress theme. You can create amazing landing pages that are beautiful and conversion focused. They've built all of their products around helping you convert more leads into customers. You can find out more about Thrive Themes by clicking the link in the show notes.
And I will say this, what you're doing with your podcast, regardless of if you have any listeners or anybody viewing these things or not, you are building your own community. Like we talk about, our community with marketing squads. Yes, that's one aspect of community at Sweetfish, but with our podcast, B2B Growth, there's a community that it has built over the years, and those relationships that James and Logan and Dan and now people like Olivia and our newest hire, Benji, like they are building genuine relationships. Like the fact that you knew that Emily DeBrito would be changing her name because of getting married, like you have built an intimate, close relationship with the people that come onto your show. And I mean, whether you realize it or not, you are building a community just with the Strategic Marketer podcast.
Yeah, spoiler alert. That's why I'm doing it. it's for that reason. So, guilty as charged. I mean, if I get an audience over time, that's great, but kind of similar to the community. I do expect to build an audience with it at some point, but I see that as being more of like an 18 to 24 month play to grow the audience side of it. But to me, and this is what Dan said to me that really pushed me over the edge, is he's like, it's about building relationships with other people. And I'm like, man, well, that's what I'm trying to do anyway. And this just makes it 10 times easier, and you get more value out of it. Sweetfish gets more value out of it. And I get more value out of it when we've created this content together versus me saying, hey, Debo, let's get a virtual coffee and I'll tell you about what I do and you tell me about what you do. And then we leave that conversation and never talk again. I used to do that, and I do have, probably 5 to 7 really good relationships that came out of doing that over 2 years of using LinkedIn before. But this has made that exponential, and what you guys are doing with community is taking that the next step and maybe giving me an idea of what I eventually need to be working on with my podcast as well. But I'm a team of one in my spare time working on this, so it might be a little while before that comes out. I don't have a Debo that's awesome to run my community for me like that. All right. So let's make this super practical. If there's a marketer that's listening to this and they are seeing the value of building community with other marketers, and they want to try to implement something like that at their company, they want to start building community and pitching that to their executive team and trying to get that going. What are some practical steps they could take to first start building community for themselves, and second, start building communities within their own organization and with their ideal customers, like what you guys are doing?
Man, if you want me to talk for the rest of the weekend, I can definitely answer that question accurately. I would say if anybody really wants to pick my brain on this, reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'd love to be able to help you and just give you any knowledge that I've learned over this past year in doing this with Sweetfish. But honestly, I would say if they can try to find those maybe 5 to even 10 people in their LinkedIn space that they're talking to daily or weekly, the people that like first come to your mind of like, I love seeing this person's posts and this person's always engaging on my posts. I would say start with those people and just try to build one squad. or call it whatever you want. Don't call it a squad. Don't steal our name.
We're stealing enough from you already by just you sharing all this information. So don't steal squad.
Yeah, or steal squad and spell it differently. I don't know. Call it a squid games, or no, that's probably not appropriate. So I would say, find those people that you're already connected with on LinkedIn, and start a small community. You can go with our model of just trying to set up a Zoom call once a month, and you can have, 2 different people presenting at every call, or you could just have people get together, and you could honestly just discuss like, hey, what's something that's going on right now at your company that you're struggling with, and maybe we can all, spitball it and get through as many problems as possible to help each other out. That's something that requires zero prep and allows people to just come in stress-free, not feeling like, they had to prepare anything. But you want it to, be valuable to those people so that they actually do show up. That's important. But yeah, I would start there. And then if that works out, then yeah, essentially you just start putting together lists. I have an Excel spreadsheet of just, people's names, their job titles, where they work, their emails, whether or not I'm connected with them on LinkedIn. If I'm not, then I will be by the end of that week, or else I'll be trying, or even by the end of that day, like I'll go after them. But I would say, just start building up those lists of people that, who is it that you want to build a community for? Because that's another thing, is we don't just need another community. We need a community maybe for a specific type of person, or for a specific need that's out there. So find out whatever your niche is and build that. I know Sweetfish is currently working on creating another community specifically for B2B marketers with podcasts. And it will be called Mic Club. So a little shout out to Mic Club before it's even in a thing, but or maybe it'll be a thing by the time this goes live. But yeah, I think it's as simple as that. Just connecting with the people you're already connecting with, and maybe throw it into a LinkedIn group chat.
Yeah, just make it official. Put a name to it, and all of a sudden people are like, "Wow, that's cool. I want to be part of that. I want to be part of that club."
Yeah, and name it something cool. Like we name our squads after 90s movies. So
Space Jam, that was my squad.
So yeah, Joseph was Space.
It's good timing with Space Jam 2 coming out, or maybe bad timing because I didn't see it, but I heard it was horrible. So
yeah,
maybe it wasn't best timing actually.
Look,
on that one.
You were named after the good one, okay? But yeah, just naming it something fun. I think that there's something about being a part of something that has a name. Yeah, that makes you feel more included in it.
Okay, so that's really like specific. If you're trying to start something, either to more to get knowledge around your own area of expertise, but if somebody's trying to get communities launched at their company with their ideal customers, because as a marketer, my ideal customer typically isn't another marketer. We actually happen to sell marketing software at the company I work for, so it is too. But industrial marketers in our case, but say it's engineers that are your ideal customer.
Gotcha.
How would you go about creating community in that setting?
It sounds like you're leading me to the answer of starting a podcast and just inviting your ideal customers onto your podcast, because what better thing to do than to have create content with these people, and then after that saying, hey, we've got this awesome new group coming along. We'd love you to be a part of it. And which is essentially what we've done. We've taken a lot of our guests from B2B growth, and those are the people that have been making up a lot of our squads. And because, like you said earlier, or like we were talking about earlier, like when you're creating content with people, it builds a deeper connection. And I don't know what it is about it, but we'll leave today, you and I, Joseph, being closer and
Absolutely.
and feeling like we have more of a friendship, and that we'll go out of our way more for each other, and
Absolutely.
which is wild. I don't know what it is about doing it. And I mean, I can even think back to when I was a teenager, and I had this guy, Jeremy, who randomly just let me use his recording studio to do a song that was horrible, awful song. But
the song didn't live on, but the relationship did.
Exactly. And I always
Absolutely.
just had him in a different category than other leaders in my church.
100%.
And so I'd say, yes, if you can get a podcast going with as minimal, the most minimal effort that you need. Like, you don't need Sweet Fish. You could do it on your own. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but it's true. Like, depending on the quality that you want, you could kind of do it on your own. You can reach out. It's going to be more work for you, but you could reach out and get.
Yeah, I'm living that one. It is more work, but it's worth it.
It is more work, but you can do it, right?
Absolutely.
And then just from the people that you have on your show, I'm sure that you could reach out to those people and say, hey guys, I want to build, some kind of friend group out of the strategic marketers. And you'd have people jump in and they'd be on board.
No, that's great. That's really great. And I'll second that. I mean, I've just since starting the podcast, the podcast isn't associated with my company. It's separate, but just from having the podcast and having connections with people on LinkedIn that are industrial marketers, which is our ICP, our ideal customers. I've had people that are in target companies of ours reach out to me and ask me to be on the podcast, and I'm building relationships with them, and that's even led to demos with people supernaturally, not
supernaturally.
Naturally, not supernaturally.
You're saying it's happening organically, not through paranormal activities.
Exactly. Yeah. Without too much effort and in an organic way. I wasn't pushing them, but it just naturally led in the conversation to, hey, this is what our company does. I think it actually might make sense for us to have a further conversation about this. And they're like, wow, that does make sense. And it leads to a demo. And that's with me doing this podcast, not even for industrial marketers or about industrial marketing. And it's led to that. And then with that group of people right now, I could reach out and start a community just with that, those 4 or 5 people I've had that are in that space already. And like you're saying, that would get rolling. So if you do start a podcast in your space, it is a great way to start building those relationships. And then if you don't want to be pitching people right after the podcast, on whatever you're doing, and you feel like, man, that might be a little sketchy to do it that way or whatever, you just invite them to be part of the community and invite them to be part of a group where you're interacting with them. And then over time, it's going to naturally lead to real relationships where they're going to recommend you. They're going to learn about what you do in a natural way. And then that leads to true community, like what we're doing right now.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not looking to start a podcast right now, but in 2 years, you decide, you know what, I think I'm going to do a podcast, and you've been a part of this community hosted by these podcast people, they're probably going to be the first thing that comes to mind when you actually start looking for it. So wouldn't you want your company, whatever your company does, to be the first thing on someone's mind when they start thinking about looking for what your company provides?
100%. Yeah, and I know we're going way over, but I want to say one more thing to just kind of put a bow on this, because for one, people are paying a lot of money to be part of industry-specific groups and niche groups. And if you're giving that away for free, when people would be paying, maybe $5,000 or $10,000 a year to be part of some of these groups, and you're just saying, hey, I want to hook you up and make you part of this group of other people that are really moving in the industry that you're in, and you're going to get to be a part and rub shoulders with people in the industry, that's really actually has monetary value to the people you're inviting on, but you're not charging them. And so don't look at it as a way to have an extra income generation for your company. Look at it as a way that you're able to give something that's invaluable to your customers or to your prospects. And then that's going to pay dividends in the long run. That's how you really build rapport with people that keeps on giving. And then the final piece of that is if you want to do cold outreach or, cold calling, prospecting, all of that side of things, and you believe in doing that, this is an amazing way to be able to do that in a way that actually adds value to the people you're reaching out to, where when you are finished interacting with them, they're really happy that you reached out. If you reached out to somebody cold and you said, hey, I've been reading your stuff on LinkedIn and I want to have you on my podcast, they benefit from that. Even if they say no, it still makes them feel good. And they're going to feel like at least a little bit flattered that you asked them to be on, even if it's not a good time. So they leave the interaction feeling happy that you reached out to them. And same with the communities. If you invite them into the community and to be part of your community, that's something that's actually nice, that somebody would ask you to be part of a group like that, even if you say no. So that builds brand reputation, even if it's not a good fit for that person right now. And they'll remember that in the future, and be way more willing to rep for you down the road. So,
Man,
good stuff.
I feel like some people are going to hear this and be like, Joseph has drank the sweet fish Kool-Aid. But honestly, it just makes me happy to see like all of this kind of working out for you. Like I love to see that this isn't just something that you dove into and now you're regretting it, but it seems like you're genuinely you're passionate about what you're doing and you're finding enjoyment out of it. So it makes me excited and happy for you. Absolutely. It's definitely the piece that I was missing in my marketing journey was the community and audience growth and, connection to other marketers is definitely a piece that I was missing, and it's definitely opened the door. So I drank the Kool-Aid. I haven't died yet. So other people can jump in and drink it too. So yeah, man, thanks so much, Thibaut, for taking time to be on the podcast today. I really appreciate it. How can people learn more about you and Sweetfish? If they want to look into me, I'm Debo on LinkedIn, D-BO with a little flame heart behind it. And if you want to check out my podcast, it is Young Married Christian. Would love for you to check it out on Instagram, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And then, if you're looking for our company, it is Sweetfish Media. It looks like the candy Swedish fish, but we are not a candy producing company. We are a podcast producing company. And would love to connect. And if you have any questions about building your own community, I'm here 7 days a week. Love it. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on. As always, there'll be information about you and Sweetfish in the show notes. So thanks for coming on, and I look forward to our next time chatting. Awesome. Thank you for listening to this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to The Strategic Marketer wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you could do me a personal favor and hit 5 stars on the rating, you don't have to leave a full review, just hit 5 stars. It would really help me out. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The Strategic Marketer.